Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar, Top 10 Tips for Advertisers in Australia and New Zealand. This webinar is hosted by WordStream and Refuel Creative. My name is Justin. I'm going to be the moderator today. To kick things off, we're going to go through some introductions so everyone knows a little bit more about WordStream and Refuel and our presenters today. So, I know everyone's going to be really excited to go into the content with the, Google Ads side of things. Refuel Creative being based in Adelaide it's going to be great for everyone to learn more about what they do and some of Ryan Jones's experience, who's the founder and CEO. So let's kick things off here. And I'm really excited. I appreciate everyone jumping on. This is going to be the first time ever for WordStream that we've done a webinar, focused on a specific market outside of the US. So it's about 8 o'clock local time here. I've got my colleague Derek Smith here as well. He works with a lot of our clients in Australia and New Zealand, and he's going to be one of our presenters as well. So, little background info about WordStream. We are a Google Premier partner, an elite Microsoft partner, Facebook marketing partner. What we actually provide is software solutions, consulting services, and managed services for small and medium-sized businesses. And we'll kind of jump into some of the strategy stuff, but also one thing that I want everyone to know too, I'm sure folks that are working with businesses in the US are used to jumping on calls in the morning time. Obviously we're still online at this hour, so we do have an Australia and New Zealand focused customer success team that is based here in Boston, but they actually work during the evening time to accommodate folks in the region. So, you might have seen me, mention this in emails talking about the webinar. I want everyone to understand, the type of data that we have in Australia and New Zealand and how we kind of came up with these strategies to help folks get better results from managing their campaigns. So we've analyzed 115,000 Google Ads accounts in Australia. Our software is used to manage $2.3 million worth of spend, and we service over 450 clients. So a big part of WordStream and what we do here is we analyze Google Ads campaigns to figure out what advertisers are doing really well when they're having a lot of success, as well as what holds people back from getting better results. So what we're going to talk about today is going to be specifically focused on what we found looking at Google Ads accounts in Australia and New Zealand. Also, folks that are using our software in Australia are seeing an increase in conversions by 38%, 16% higher click-through rate, and an 11% decrease in cost per acquisition. Also, in New Zealand, we've analyzed 27,000 accounts. We're managing $572,000 worth of ad spend, over 110 clients in the region. And then for our clients in New Zealand, on average, they're seeing an increase in conversions by 35% and an increase in click-through rate by 10%. So we're going to kind of dive into that in a minute here, because those numbers in terms of increases in conversion are actually higher for our customers in Australia and New Zealand. But, I know a lot of folks are probably really excited to hear about Refuel Creative being, a local company based in Adelaide. So let's talk about them. So Refuel Creative, Google partner, HubSpot Gold certified agency, Drift partner, Microsoft partner, and Shopify partner. I'm just summing it up here too. They have other partnerships. The great thing about Refuel is that they work with some of the best technology to enable their clients to have the best online presence. Refuel Creative handles marketing, paid media campaigns, websites, branding, anything technology related, IT and that kind of stuff. And they also specialize in video. Refuel Creative was started in 2016, based in Port Adelaide. Love to make it out there myself someday. And they've gone from basically Ryan Jones, working 12, 14-hour days himself to get everything set up, to now a full-time staff of 7 people. So obviously, being based in South Australia and the Northern Territories is kind of their bread and butter. They worked with a lot of folks. They get a lot of referrals. They also have a lot of experience helping other businesses across Australia, New Zealand, and really all over the world. So you're gonna get some great insights from them today. Little bit of info about myself. So I'm Justin Wyant. I'm a senior Google Ads consultant here at WordStream. I've been on our sales team for over 4 years here. I also, help with content like this webinar, for example, different blog posts, and also I'm one of our Facebook ad strategists. So oftentimes when folks are coming to us, they need help with Facebook. A lot of people will come to me with help in that kind of social media advertising and whatnot. And then overall, I've helped over 130 businesses in the Asia Pacific region really, improve their pay-per-click and paid social efforts to get from where they were to where they wanted to be. While we're going through this, feel free to jump in with questions along the way too. Typically for our webinars, we have, sometimes upwards of like 500 people that are attending, so we can't really go through questions live during the webinar. But I do want to mention that, if anyone ever wants to jump in, there will be a question box, and we can jump in anytime to answer your questions along the way. So Derek is my colleague here. He's one of our senior customer success specialists at WordStream. He's also the leader on our offline assist team. So with offline assist, it's kind of a hybrid solution that we have for businesses that do want to have somebody like Derek, who's a pay-per-click pro, in their account, making optimizations to improve results, but they also want to manage things on their own as well, using our software. So Derek really spearheads that. He's part of our Australia, New Zealand client services team. So, he's working around this time to accommodate folks' schedules. And I want to mention that he's frequently referred to by his managers as one of our best and brightest. I've seen that on a lot of emails. So Stephanie wrote in here, the sound isn't working. Not really sure what's going on there. We will be recording this, by the way. So, feel free to let us know if you're not able to get the audio working, or anyone who's going to be, attending part of this, and they're not able to see the whole thing, or that you just want to look back on it. We will be sending recordings afterwards. Everyone can go back and look at it. And it sounds like some other people are able to have the sound working, so that's great. Now, let's talk about the star of the show here, Ryan Jones. He's been probably my best friend for a little over 2 years now. I actually met Ryan in Boston when he was going to the Inbound conference. And, I don't want to be like tooting his horn too much here, but I will say, after working with dozens of agencies in Australia and New Zealand, one thing that's really unique about the region is you hear a lot of agencies talk about the fact that, they want to be the marketing branch of your business. They want to be an extension of your business that helps with everything related to your online presence. So Ryan is an expert in web development, building websites, IT, pay-per-click, obviously, what we're going to talk about today, um, conversational marketing through chat, live chat, and he's also a WordStream partner. Also, Ryan hates the barbecue here in Boston. He makes the best brisket in the entire world in his backyard in Adelaide. So when I'm in Port Adelaide, I'm definitely going to be taking him up on his offer for barbecue sometime. All right. So that's us. I wanted everyone to kind of know, who's going to be talking today and know about our experience. One thing that you might not know is that if you're in Australia and New Zealand, you're actually in one of the most expensive countries in the world to advertise on Google Ads. Now, if you can see, there's one country in the Middle East that actually has a higher cost per click than the US. That would be the United Arab Emirates. The United States has the second highest cost per click. And then Australia and New Zealand are actually in that kind of next tier down, where the cost per click is slightly lower than the United States, much higher than other places across the world. So we've got two countries in Europe. We've got Brazil and Chile down there in South America, and then Australia and New Zealand are right up there. Very expensive cost per click. So I'm not sure if a lot of folks realize that. It's very competitive where you are. If you're just getting started, you want to make sure that you're taking the right approach to managing your campaigns from the beginning. Also, if you're not really seeing the results that you're looking for, you really want to make sure that you're properly optimizing your campaigns and doing everything you can to get ahead of the competition, because there are so many other businesses that have been advertising. The more competition there is on Google, the more your costs are going to be. So it makes it that much more important to make sure you're taking the right approach. So looking at some of the specifics, in Australia, the average cost per click is 5% less than the US, so very close. New Zealand average cost per click is 14% less than the average in the US. Maybe some, folks here, do some business across different countries in Asia, or maybe, you have folks that you work with out there. You can see, average cost per clicks in Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, and India. Cost per click is going to be a little bit lower, right? There's less competition in those countries. So a big part of that is Google opened up their Sydney office in 2002. First client in the region was eBay Australia. So, Google kind of settled down in Sydney so early on into advertising on Google and having an ad platform. That's a big part of the reason why it's so expensive and why there's so much competition and the costs are quite high. So, we want to focus now on helping you get ahead of your competition, and there's a lot of strategies that you can do to deal with this. I don't want everyone thinking like, oh geez, maybe if I'm not on Google Ads, maybe it's going to be too expensive for me. Maybe you're a small business and you're wondering if you really can get a good return. So let's talk about what you can do to get ahead. Adding long tail keywords. Um, like I mentioned, I've brought on over 130 folks onto WordStream to help them out with managing their campaigns. There's also been a lot of folks that I've spoken with about their account. I've analyzed thousands of campaigns, and one of the things that I hear on a lot of meetings is people don't know what long tail keywords are. So a long tail keyword is a longer phrase, and it's very specific. So it really kind of speaks to somebody who sounds like they're at a point of purchase. Let's use an example. You're a car dealership. All of your competitors are going to be using keywords like cars, SUVs, and trucks, right? Maybe another example is you're a clothing store. Everyone's going to be using shirts and shoes and those really kind of basic generic terms. However, your competitors might not be using something like buy a car near me, black BMW, used car dealership. If that speaks to your customer, that's something that we want to start to use, and we want to start to bid on those long tail keywords. Couple advantages to doing that. One, you're going to get more impressions because when you're telling Google, hey, that's the customers I'm going for, they're more likely to show your ad for those searches moving forward. Cost per click goes down. Um, if you think about it like this, like Google's an auction system. So if you're using relevant keywords that your competitors aren't, you get to go to that auction first and you don't have to deal with that competition. So it's a great way to lower your cost per click and, more importantly, lower your customer acquisition costs. So for folks that are currently advertising now, to find long tail keywords, you can look in your search terms report. This is actually a screenshot from our tool in our software called QueryStream, which helps folks, manage search queries a lot more efficiently and a lot easier to save time. But you can see basically this advertiser does windows and doors, and their keywords in their account are window replacement and door replacement. This is also an industry that's quite expensive. You could be spending 20 or 30 or 40 plus dollars per click. And they're also showing up for replacement slider windows, replacement side lights for entry doors, etc. So these terms sound very relevant to this business. So what they want to do is start to add those terms into their accounts as keywords of their own. And again, that's going to help drive more impressions, lower cost per click. And this is a business that wants to generate leads and quotes, right? So it's going to help lower that cost per lead. Another thing that I've noticed that, again, working across the globe, there's just certain things about advertising in Australia and New Zealand that are a little bit different. And one of the most common things that I come across is you're going to have search queries in your account from people that are looking for a specific location in their search. So what you want to do is start to advertise and kind of speak to them, let them know that you can help. I'll give you an example. Solar company based in Brisbane. You service customers within 150-kilometer radius, right? Let's say, solar job's going to be $20,000 or $100,000. It's worth driving out that far to service them. So when you're looking at your search terms report, you're going to be finding people are searching on Google for solar companies Brisbane, solar installation Gold Coast, solar companies Sunshine Coast. So if you actually start to set up in your account separate ad groups for these separate locations, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, that's going to help you make sure that when somebody is looking for a specific term, they're looking for solar companies Brisbane, we can show them an ad that says Brisbane. Or if they're looking for somebody in the Gold Coast, mention the Gold Coast in there, mention that you service their area. That way you're going to be as relevant as possible. And if your competition isn't using that strategy, you're going to be able to get ahead of them, and Google's going to prefer you. Remember, at the end of the day, like, Google's mission is to help people find what they're looking for. So whoever is going to speak to that local searcher and write an ad specific to them, they're going to be the ones who get at the top of the page. And one of the things that you might also find too is, people are looking for Australian made products and services. So, I would say, like, Australians, New Zealanders, you're proud of where you come from. You want to work with somebody local. So that's another, great thing to focus on as well. If somebody is looking specifically for a product in Australia, somebody local, mention in the ad that you're in Australia or that you're in New Zealand to really kind of drive that point home to them. Bonus tip here, very exciting. So, e-commerce businesses, this is a little bit different. A lot of folks in Australia and New Zealand are looking for a brick and mortar store. So for e-commerce businesses, you might find that you're not actually getting good results from location-based searches. If you're selling dog food and somebody is looking for dog food Perth, they might just be looking for a store that they can stop by and buy in the store. So that's something to keep in mind too. If you're advertising and you don't have conversion tracking, one, you need to set up conversion tracking so you can see the actual results that you're driving. And two, you want to keep an eye on this. If you're not getting good results from these location-based searches, you want to start eliminating those from your account and setting negative keywords. With that, I'm gonna pass the mic over to my colleague Derek. I'm really excited for everyone to learn from him. I always know, folks are in good hands when I'm passing them over to work with Derek. So with that, here's Derek Smith.
All right, thank you, Justin. Want to talk to you guys a little bit more about some match type best practices here, and actually share one of the number one match types that I'm going to recommend to pretty much all of my clients, which is actually going to be the modified broad match. So if you're not familiar with this, slightly more restrictive match type than what we see on a broad match, because those broad matches are really going to reach the widest audience possible, but they can actually lead to a really high amount of wasted clicks, wasted spend that are really going to increase that CPA. So modified broad match is going to be a slightly more restrictive match type that will actually allow you to reach a more narrow audience to help decrease that CPA and really lower, increase the amount of conversions coming in and lower that CPA. While phrase and exact matches are really good match types to utilize in an account, they can bring in a very narrow set of traffic, and there actually could be a lot of potential customers and conversions that you're missing out on without leveraging a modified broad match. And just to kind of walk you guys through how a modified broad actually works. You're actually going to see in the example here with that Wi-Fi router, you'll see a plus symbol in front of each of those words. This is actually going to act as an anchor, and it's going to say that the term Wi-Fi and router is required to be in the search query, but it can be in any order. So router could come before Wi-Fi, people could put terms in between router and Wi-Fi, and your ad would actually still be pulled into the ad auction. Whereas a broad match, that's actually going to pull in anything that Google deems to be somewhat relevant to a Wi-Fi router. So if you see over there, some are bidding on footwear, they're going to be pulled into things for men's dress wingtips, formal footwear, evening footwear, etc. And then your phrase matches and exact matches are going to be slightly more restrictive. So if you're putting formal shoes on a phrase match, it's going to require the term to be in that order and then add anything after it for your ad to be pulled into the ad auction. While exact match, pretty straightforward, is really just going to pull in that exact search query, in this case being formal shoes. So modified broad overall is a really great recommendation, and usually something that I'm going to recommend to those new clients that I see coming on board when they are using a broad match and they're getting a lot of wasted spend coming into the account. Or on the flip side, for those clients that are coming on and they're not really seeing the amount of traffic that they really want to be getting, that's where I'll suggest we use a modified broad match and leverage our tool query stream, as Justin mentioned, to identify some more longer-tailed keywords that we can leverage in the account down the road. And then the next thing I want to talk about here are automated bidding strategies. So these are something that in theory sound really great. Maximize conversions being a really great example of one. Google's going to take control of your bids to quote unquote get you as many conversions as possible, which sounds great to a lot of businesses, but not something that necessarily is going to be correct for everyone. So that's why I always like to say, especially for new people that are coming on board, that a manual bidding strategy can actually be something that makes more sense for us to leverage in the beginning of an account, with maybe striving towards getting a automated bidding strategy down the road. So the problem is Google does actually make most of their revenue off of large enterprises that have those massive budgets. So by giving Google complete control over your bids, they can actually eat through your budget really quickly, which is not going to leave you enough budget left to really be getting as many clicks as possible. So if you're working with that limited budget, your customer acquisition cost is obviously important. So by manually setting those bids, you're actually going to be able to get more clicks per day than if you were using that automated bidding strategy that Google might be pushing. So as I mentioned, manual cost per click is generally the bidding strategy that I'm going to recommend for those small businesses that we work with. So first off, figuring out what that ideal CPA is, and then you'll be able to set your bids for each of those keywords in order to help you achieve that goal. So after you let some data flow into the account, you can actually decrease your bids for those keywords or even pause the keywords that are not helping you reach your goal. And if we look at the example here, we actually see our real estate agent Jacobs looking to find those 2 to 3 leads per month, and he spent around $1,500 per month on those ad campaigns. He successfully closes a deal for every 10 phone calls he gets from a prospective client, so he needs to have that $50 CPA to ensure that he's generating 30 calls per month from PPC. So what he essentially is going to want to do is go in and increase those bids that have that CPA that is lower than 50, and then of course decrease his bids for those keywords that have a CPA higher than 50, or even if there are those keywords that are leading to a high amount of spend with no conversions, my recommendation is going to be to actually look at those keywords themselves and potentially pause the terms, the keywords themselves, or dig into the queries that you're getting clicks for and potentially add in some negatives to help bring down that CPA even further. And that way he's going to be able to ensure that his ad spend is going towards those best performing keywords. And when it comes to managing your bids, can definitely seem like it's something overwhelming at first, but here at WordStream, we actually have an alert within our 20-minute work week that's going to help you adjust those bids to get you into your ideal CPA. So as we can see here, there's a number of different keywords that are in this specific account, and the proposed bid changes over there to the far right are going to suggest that the bid changes should be either increased or decreased because of the high performance or low performance of the keywords. And this is obviously just going to allow you to maximize the amount of conversions coming in while keeping your CPA as low as possible. And you can also adjust your bids for different geography locations and days of the week, as well as time of day. So as I mentioned, we can see here in this particular graph that for this account, your CPA during the weekday is significantly lower than what your CPA is experiencing on the weekends. So you can actually go in and make different adjustments for days of the week so that maybe your bids become less aggressive on the weekend, while during the weekday they are a little bit higher, since this account tends to perform a little bit better on the weekday than what they're seeing on the weekend. So we have a good example here of managing your bids. So they stop wasting money on they stop wasting money so that they could spend more on the converting keywords. So David Fitzgerald, the general manager of Electricity Monster, said there were a lot of improvements in terms of in terms of efficiency, mainly from removing waste and adjusting our bids on better converting days of the week. So using this strategy and partnering with WordStream, he was actually able to get 550 sales per week from PPC, which resulted in a revenue of $100,000 per week, which is of course not bad for that 30-person shop. So since using WordStream, his revenue's gone up by 300% in as little as 6 months. And of course, he said he would recommend WordStream to anyone.
Awesome. And this is where I'm going to pass things over to Mr. Ryan Jones. I forgot to bring my drum kit to give him a proper drum roll here. Thanks for jumping on, Derek. Derek will be available to answer some questions at the end. He actually does have a call coming up at the top of the hour here, but feel free to type in any specific questions that you have for Derek, and we'll try to get through them at the end. With that, Ryan, all you.
Thank you for passing that baton over, Justin. I'll grab it. Now, Derek's just been talking a bit about optimizing a mobile strategy, but in Australia, for every 100 people, there are 132 mobile devices. So your mobile strategy is really critical over in this part of the world. And where do we get 132 from? Lots of people have work mobiles and things like that. So it just reinforces how critical mobile is to us. Now, to get the best bang for buck for your mobile users, you want to make sure that your landing page is mobile friendly. Google have been reinforcing that for a long time in terms of organic search and PPC. So it's really important that you've got mobile landing pages for all of your campaigns. You want to keep your ad copy concise, and there's a feature in WordStream that lets you stick within your word limits and your character limits, so that's really easy. And don't be afraid to promote phone calls. So your call extensions are a really easy way that you can allow users to click on the phone icon so that they can call you directly from the ad when they're on their phone. And that also gives you a really good way of being able to track the exact number of people that are calling you from your ads. Because quite often your number one goal might not be to sell something online, it might be to get phone calls, it might be to get leads. Anyone who works with trades, electricians, plumbers, things like that, they want phone calls rather than website leads generally. So you want to make sure that you are appropriately using your call extensions. It goes for all of your ad extensions. And you may even need to look at some kind of call tracking solution on your website, which I'm sure WordStream is working on because they just brought something out for the US. So in terms of how you optimize your mobile strategy, probably the other thing that you need to consider there is who the target is for the ad and what the target objective is for the client. In many cases, you can see on this slide here, it might be that mobile devices are spending the most. In this case, they have the lower CPC, and you can adjust your bids per device. So if you're finding that a particular device is converting at a lower rate, you may want to consider reducing the bids for that particular device. For example, we quite often find, and this case is exactly one of those, there's a high spend on tablets per click, but we're not getting great results there. So what we might want to do is we might want to apply a negative bid adjustment there. In this case, WordStream's recommending a positive bid adjustment on mobile. So we want to focus the budget on what is performing best. Also consider optimizing your holiday strategy. I'm not sure if anyone on here works with tourism businesses, but we work with a few. That becomes really important. So you want to make sure that you're creating ads that are customized to upcoming holidays. Keep things interesting, play off what we know people are going to be looking for in the market. If you do have the option to provide some kind of discount, promotion, or incentive, you can incorporate that into your ad copy, and you can also use things like your promotion extensions. So you can schedule those throughout that holiday, and they'll stop running after the holiday has finished. So particularly if you're a very seasonal business, look at your 2019 results, determine where your peaks and valleys were, and consider how you should be spending your budget. We often look at a client's budget and they say, I've got $1,000 a month to spend, $2,000, $5,000, and the most effective way to spend that budget is not necessarily spending $5,000 a month. It might be spending $2,000 in low months, and it might be spending $7,000 or $8,000 in high months. So Justin wants to give us a bonus tip today. So if you're working with customers overseas, take the time to look at their local holidays. And knowing those local holidays can help you pick up on when there might be demand in those particular countries, and you can create ads which are tailored to the market. There's a bit more trust because they feel like you get them. The other thing is, according to Shopify, 57% of online shoppers make purchases from overseas. And obviously in Australia, that's a big thing. So e-commerce businesses can grow their customer bases by selling to other English-speaking markets pretty easily. So if you can find a way to streamline your shipping processes and costs, there's a big global market, so look at ways that you can incorporate shopping and seasonalities and overseas markets into your ad campaigns. Now, number 7, don't forget about Bing. And every time we talk to a new client, they're like, oh, I don't use Bing. Who uses Bing? Does anyone use Bing? Funny thing is, Bing's search engine market share in Australia was 11% in 2015, grew to 16% in 2019. Doesn't sound like a lot, 16%, but Bing's user base tends to be older and more educated and wealthier than Google users. So you can often get a better result for less money. The other thing we find in Australia is that the people that use Bing are quite often state and federal governments, councils, people who have Edge installed on their computer, they don't know, or their IT department don't let them change their default browser and their default search engine. That is a very attractive market to a lot of us. Now, the great thing is you can copy your Google ad campaigns over to Bing Ads really easily, and WordStream makes it really simple to be able to allocate a small part of your budget towards Bing just to test it out, see what kind of response you get with your particular audience, and then you can tailor your budget between the two very easily. All right, so how are you going as a PPC manager, and is PPC something that you would manage in-house or something that you would get somebody external to manage? Now, the main checklist to look for here is, does your PPC manager, or you, if you are the PPC manager, do you have 2 to 4 hours per week to dedicate to managing the campaigns? Now, WordStream do a great job through the 20-minute work week of simplifying that process, but it doesn't always take 20 minutes. You've got to go through and create your new ads, you've got to go through and split your ad groups, look at what's performing and push your budget towards the areas where you're going to get the best result. So you do need 2 to 4 hours per week, depending on how much you've got to spend. Does your PPC manager have enough knowledge of your product or service to understand the relevancy of the search queries that you're paying for? Justin showed you the data from the query stream before. This is a really subjective area sometimes, because some of the searches that people perform are increasingly long tail, very complex, and you need to really consider the person and the search intent and the product to understand whether they fit. Does your PPC manager know which metrics are the most important to you? Are you totally geared towards revenue? Are you looking at reach, impressions? Usually what we want is revenue, but your PPC manager needs to understand what the key requirement is. Do you have access to your ad account? Very common to find that people have no access to their ad account, and when they move on from their agency, they don't get to keep the ad account that they've invested a significant amount in building up. So that means if you want to transition from an agency through to self-managing or through to using something like WordStream to manage yourself, quite often people have to start from scratch, which is really a big blow. And the last one, and this should be kind of obvious, but does your PPC manager know PPC? Or are they one of those people that just puts their hand up and go, yeah, I can do it, love to. If you're not sure about PPC, we have a really good blog on our website with links to all of the Google Ad certifications so you can learn a bit more. Now, the red flags that we come across all the time, WordStream come across all the time, the small businesses, or in the US lingo, mum and pop shops, they often rely on employees that wear many hats. They think that they can get a marketing Jack or Jill of all trades that can do absolutely everything. But then if your internal PPC manager doesn't have enough time to dedicate to the PPC, you're kind of setting them up to fail. So they need to have the dedicated time to get the most out of it. If you're using a new hire or an external PPC manager, make sure that you've spent the time to educate them on your products and services. They need to understand your profit margins, they need to understand your current cost per acquisition of your other channels, and they need to thoroughly understand your business and your customers to be able to manage your account effectively. If you're using an agency or consultant and you don't have access to your ad account, like I mentioned before, you're at risk of losing valuable account data. If you terminate that relationship, you'd probably have to start from scratch. It's not to say that all agencies that own their clients' ad accounts are bad, but many are. And it's something to be aware of because you need that information or you lose a lot of traction. The last thing there is if your internal PPC manager doesn't have a lot of experience, they won't be able to generate the best ROI possible. They may be able to do the basics of PPC management, but you get a lot more experience through, and I'm a little bit biased here because we manage a lot of accounts, but the amount of experience you get across multiple accounts and across increasing amounts of spend, that flows into other accounts and has other benefits for other clients. So, how do we solve these problems? So the first thing is invest in PPC management time-saving tools. So the goal there is to slightly reduce the amount of time that you can spend on managing your PPC. That will allow your PPC manager to be more productive with the limited time they have, so they can manage the ad campaigns effectively. Find a way to take other responsibilities off their plate. So if you've got your PPC manager also managing your social and your blog and your SEO and everything else, take some of that off of them so they can dedicate more time specifically to your PPC. Spend time reviewing your keyword list and your search terms report together so that you can make sure that the traffic you're paying for is relevant and educate people on any business knowledge gaps. Finally, make sure that you let them know what your main objectives are. Do you want to eliminate wasted spend and reduce your CPA? Of course you are. Are you looking to grow and generate as many sales or leads as possible? What we typically try and do is, first of all, eliminate the wasted spend, get the CPA down as low as possible, then grow it from there. That way your PPC manager can apply the right strategy that aligns specifically with your goals. Now, the next one would be to just, if you're using an agency today, ask your agency to give you access to your ad account or ask them for specific reports that demonstrate the results they're driving from their management of your campaigns. We like to send our clients reports because it shows the quality of the work that we're doing. They should be prepared to do that too. Point your PPC manager to relevant industry blogs to grow their knowledge. Keep up with platform updates and changes. There's so many free blogs, free content out there. The Google courses themselves, the certification courses are free as well, so you shouldn't really need to pay for training. Lastly, hire a third-party consultant for that higher level strategic advice. You may not need to do this forever, but it is a really good way to bridge knowledge gaps and sort of take the best of both worlds where you've got an internal PPC manager, they know kind of what they're doing, but they don't necessarily have the experience to be able to apply it effectively across all of the campaigns. A consultant can give you specific feedback on your account needs. All right, let's talk a little bit about Facebook ads. So in terms of best practices here, most small businesses should be using some kind of conversion campaigns. So make sure you've got your pixel set up on your website and make sure your campaign settings are set to optimize for conversions. Ultimately, what we should be getting out of our Facebook ads is not necessarily reach, but it's orders, it's leads, and it's conversions. We often find that using lookalike audiences is more effective than manually targeting demographics and interests. And what we've also found is that adjusting the lookalike audiences is very effective as well. In some competitive markets, using a 10% lookalike audience can be more effective than using a 1% lookalike. You should always test 2 to 4 ads per ad set. That goes for Google, Bing, Facebook, everything. Always be testing, always be split testing across your campaigns. I'd say 3 to 4 ads minimum per ad set, and that will help you understand which messaging applies to which audience. You should always create brand new ads when your ad frequency is above 6, your conversion rate is declining, or your click-through rate is declining. Those are all indicators that something's not working with your ads or not working anymore. So give them a freshen up, make the brand new ads, and look to increase the results from that. Finally, always test different variations of ads that are performing well. Maybe look at what performed well with those, look at your new ideas that you've got, incorporate them together to get the best results. So why are these things important? So when you're using conversion campaigns, with the conversion tracking set up properly and the optimized for conversion setting, that means that Facebook will automatically allocate your budget to the ads, demographics, and placements that are generating the most conversions. Facebook can't do that unless it knows what the conversion is, so that means that the conversion tracking has to be set up properly. Lookalike audiences leverage your customers' information from email lists that you can upload, your website visitors, or your Facebook page fans to find other people on Facebook that have a lot in common with your customers and are therefore likely to buy. Little hack with that, as Justin mentioned right at the start, we are a HubSpot partner. And HubSpot, even on their free tier, if you use their CRM with their ads add-on, can automatically create audiences that feed into Facebook based on the data in your CRM. So in real time, you can feed those audiences over to Facebook based on exactly the customers that you have and look for those lookalike audiences. Last one there would be testing multiple ads, because that's going to allow you to understand which ad is performing the best. Creating an ad all on its own is not really going to tell you anything about what isn't going to work. And I'm sure that many of you have had those robust discussions in the office where you can't decide on exactly the CTA or exactly the messaging that you want to use with the ad. So try them all. If you're applying the campaign settings that we mentioned using Optimize for Conversions, Facebook will automatically allocate most of your budget to the ad with the most sales or leads. So the right ad is always going to win. And I always find it interesting that when we've had the discussion internally about what we think will and won't work, we run multiple ads. It's usually not the one that we thought was going to work that gets the best results, because humans are interesting. All right. Make sure you consider Facebook ads, and I would say this with Google Display as well. They can suffer from ad fatigue. So you're wasting budget serving the same ad to the same people over and over and over again. Try a different ad, try something to see whether it's more interesting to them. You can keep advertising to that same group of people, that same audience, but try different things to try and cut through the noise and give them something fresh to look at. Nicely there, if you have an ad that's absolutely killing it, bringing great results, just try tweaking it a little bit with a new variant. Try using a different headline, maybe an image or a video, because sometimes those small changes can go a long way towards giving you a better result. Now, a few other Facebook ads best practices. Always be testing is basically one way that I could sum up all of this Facebook ads. Try using multiple ad types. So the most popular ad types we find are single image ads, carousel ads, and video ads, but video ads are increasingly the ones that are getting the cut through. If you only use one ad type, you will never really know if a different ad type would work better. Everybody's audience is going to be slightly different as well, so test and test and test. Now, if you haven't got this by now, remember that testing multiple ads per ad set is a best practice in all online advertising. So don't just test different ads, but try different ad types in each ad set as well. Also consider that Facebook is one of the best, if not the best, platform for remarketing or retargeting. So hopefully you know what that is, but if you don't, it's showing people ads after they've hit your website so you can bring them back to convert on your site. Sometimes your customers are not ready to buy when they land on your site, so remarketing to them on Facebook can help bring them back to your site when they're ready to pull out their credit card. We actually find with some of our customers that in some cases it can be a week or two from first interaction with your brand to actually closing the sale. In some cases, you have to go home and check with your significant other. You might want to do some research on the product. There's a range of different reasons for that, but retargeting allows us to get back in front of those people and give them the right message. All right. So if you look at this particular graph and you look at the spend, by stretching our spend across Google and Facebook, we're able to get more conversions, but most importantly, we're able to lower our overall account CPA by 15%. And I've mentioned WordStream a few times. It is one of the tools that we use for this, but WordStream actually allows us to measure across Google ads and Facebook ads and push our budget into the channel that's giving us the most performance. So we can use Google, Bing, and Facebook to drive the best outcomes for the client. All right, the last tip that I've got here is just around improving your conversion rates on your site. I'm sure that you've all seen that live chat has become very common in the last few years. The main thing is that customers don't always want to fill out a form and wait for you to reply. And in some cases, they don't want to make a phone call either. Millennials do not want to talk to another human being. They want to send a text message or something similar to that. So try using some form of live chat. When you're online, using a live chat allows you to answer questions. You can use it to set up meetings and create an awesome customer experience when the customer needs help. If you use bots for that, they can ask qualifying questions, they can book meetings, even when you aren't around. We live in a 24/7 society these days. You'll quite often find people on your website at 11 or 12 o'clock at night, and you're probably in bed. You need somebody to be able to cater for that, and chatbots can do that. Now, this doesn't have to be an expensive solution. Facebook Messenger can be installed on your website to do basic chat. HubSpot and Drift both provide free chat options with paid options to have more complicated chatbots on your site. You might even notice that some of your customers have a lot of the same questions when you start using chat. So if you use something like HubSpot or Drift, you can actually save the replies in the tool so that you can drop them in as templates when customers need the answers. That way you are providing a faster service, but you're also providing a consistent service no matter who is the person responding to that. We're using live chat to get as high as a 50% conversion rate in some B2B markets through no more than offering that as an option to the visitor from the PPC campaign, and they are more likely to use the bot than they are to go through and do more research through your site. So it's a huge way to increase your conversion rates on your site. Justin.
All right. So I had a question that popped up real quick for Derek. So he's got to jump in a call in 5 minutes, but just real quick. Derek, somebody asked you, I'm using broad match. I'm getting leads. Why would I change that? Curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. So I've seen that happen multiple times. In my recommendation there is, which I brought up when I was talking, and Justin brought up as well. You can actually leverage the query stream tool within our software, and see what those clicks were and what some of those queries that were leading to conversions were. And you can also see what some of those irrelevant clicks are that you're getting through that broad match. So I always like to recommend looking at that data, and you can actually use that and sort by impressions, to actually find some longer tailed keywords that you could put on modified broad there, and really try to cut down on that wasted spend, and also reduce that CPA.
Awesome, Derek. Thank you so much. We know you got to get going here. We've got a few more questions. One of them I definitely want to run by Ryan here. While we're going through the questions too, I do want to pull up a poll here. For folks that do want to see how they can possibly improve their Google Ads results, we have a free Google Ads grader report. And that would, in 1 or 2 minutes of running the report, give you a 10-point breakdown of your account and areas where you can make improvements. Also, if you do want help with pay-per-click and paid social ads, the second option there, let us know if you want to talk to somebody at WordStream. Certainly, we do like to cover specific strategies that we're seeing across advertisers in general in the region to improve your results. If you're looking for something customized to your business, and the campaigns that you're running or the campaigns that you want to start, that's something we can help you with as well. And then, if you want to talk to Refuel Creative and get a better understanding of how they can help your business, they do also obviously help with pay-per-click and everything. Ryan and his team are really well equipped to help you with your website, help you get live chat set up and all that kind of stuff. I really mean it when I say, guys, I've worked with a lot of agencies. Ryan is somebody, I'm sure you can tell, he takes the time to understand what folks are looking for, what results they want to drive, what's going to be important to them. He's going to make sure that he knows your business inside out, so that way he can deliver on what your marketing objectives are. And if you're all set, that's cool too. So we got a great question here from Rogan. I'm gonna ask you about this, Ryan, because I thought maybe this was some Aussie lingo, and I looked it up on my phone. I'm always trying to grow my Aussie lingo. By the way, I actually hold the WordStream record for saying heaps the most during meetings, so I'm picking up. I'm getting there. But this is actually more of a math question. So, Ryan, can you use Boolean searches?
Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
not sure why you... Okay, that's an interesting question. You can target any search query that somebody would be putting in, which gets very interesting in this age of voice search, because now people, we see queries come up like, okay, Google, find me a local plumber, or something like that. But you can use a whole combination of different terms to target your searches better.
Awesome. I knew your answer would be better than mine since you're much smarter than me, so I appreciate that. And then, Ryan, I have another question for you here. So we had Paul type in here. He's noticed in looking at his search terms that a lot of people are looking for his competitors when they're clicking on his ads. And he asked specifically for you to answer that one. What do you recommend to Paul that he does with people looking for competitor-specific searches?
Okay, this is a really tricky thing, and our approach varies depending on the competitor and the market. We have found that in some markets, The competitor is a very generic name. So in that case, you can target it just like any other term. The challenge that we find with competitor terms is you typically can't incorporate them into your ad copy. It might be that the competitor term is a trademark term and they won't allow it, or it might be that it's not relevant. So I mean, technically you could put it in there, but you wouldn't get any result out of it. Ultimately, what that would do if you did use it is it would drive down your quality scores unless you could make sure that your ad copy and your landing page experience were relevant to that competitor. And that works well in a SaaS space. So there's people like Asana use that effectively when people are searching for Trello, and they have a page comparing Asana to Trello that allows them to still get a high quality score. I typically would target the keyword as a first step, see what's going to happen with that keyword, see what kind of quality score and relevance we can get out of what we've already got, and then tailor the approach from there. Try to sort of consider that in some markets, competitors know each other and they get angry if they find that you use their name in the search copy. It's a very common thing to target the keywords, but when you're trying to go with the ad copy as well, it's a bit questionable. I'm not sure that I've particularly answered that for you. I think it might be a bit complicated in my answer, but it can work effectively if you take the time to get it right.
Awesome. Thanks for the insights, Ryan. And we did have a couple people say they wanted to check out the Google Ads Grader report. I'm going to send in the chat in your GoToWebinar the link to that report. So folks who have indicated they want to run it, you can follow that link to get to the Grader report. I will try to match up with your email too and send over a link over email, and you can run it that way as well. I know it sounds like we got somebody else who was losing the audio kind of towards the end. We can definitely send over recordings for folks if you want to write in to support@wordstream.com. And you know, our support team can forward over the info to me. We can send over the recordings, or if anyone wants to share it with their friends, you know, we'd love to have, you know, the webinar going around to anyone who it would be helpful for. Now, we did get one more question here, which I'll answer because it kind of lines up with you know, some of the things that I've worked on in the last 4 years. Somebody asked, they're a practice management B2B software working with doctors, helping folks, you know, streamline their billing process and reporting and all that kind of stuff. And they asked, should I be using Facebook ads as a B2B business? I would say absolutely yes. And I will, you know, try to find your info and send over some benchmarks for what we see B2B businesses driving on Facebook. You know, there is, I think, a common misconception that B2B businesses shouldn't be on Facebook. It's more, you know, consumer product driven and all of that. Some of the stuff that we talked about today, using lookalike audiences to, you know, mirror your customer base, sending ads to people who really kind of fit the mold of who your customers are, and have a lot in common with your customers. That's can be really effective for B2B businesses. Or just doing remarketing. You know, let's say somebody, you know, finds you organically, or they click on one of your Google ads. If we're sending them some ads when they're on Facebook, it's really keeping you top of mind. We tend to find that customer acquisition costs tend to be a little bit lower on the Facebook side of things. So it's a great way to really bring that overall customer acquisition cost down, allocate a little bit of budget, and it can go a long way. And yeah, with that, I appreciate everyone jumping on the call. And thanks for Ryan and Derek for stepping in and helping out and everything. We hope to, hear from folks. If you have any more questions that pop up, anything that we can do to help, WordStream and Refuel Creative, we're here. You can't go wrong. Ryan, I know you got a better ending in you than that. Why don't you wrap things up here?
Well, thanks for inviting me on the call today, Justin. I hope that was helpful for everybody. I think the main thing is to invest in getting the quality set up at the start. Make sure that you're tackling the right keywords, get a good quality account coming up, and that'll put you in good stead pretty much forever. So do reach out to Justin or I if you need a hand. We're both around to help out with that, so you're welcome to get in touch.
Awesome. And we just had somebody type in too with a specific inquiry. I've got the info there. I will certainly follow up. Another thing I want to mention too is, anyone who's traveling to the States, if folks are by Boston, Ryan stopped by the WordStream office. Him and I had a chance to hang out. We can show folks around. Certainly if you're in Port Adelaide, hit up Ryan. Whether or not you need help with online marketing, he's also a fun guy to hang out with. So I figure that's worth mentioning when you're traveling.
WordStream do not get very many customers actually going to their Boston office. So definitely if you are in the area, go and knock on the door. They would love to have you. Absolutely.
Open doors here. Awesome. And with that, we will wrap things up. Thanks again for everyone. I know a lot of folks, we're seeing the whole thing through. We really appreciate your time jumping on the webinar. Really hope that it's helpful. Have a good one, everyone.